Morning, Year 11. Today we're going to be doing theory. Most of you have been handing in your work, which is good, and I'll get to marking them in the next few days. So where we're at, we've finished up Fred Williams. You've done all your book tasks that involved answering the questions from textbook, finding two artworks, and writing about the subject matter and composition. Then you would have filled out this document here, which we're going to go through. I'm going to talk about my answers, and this is really important in terms of building, I guess, your understanding and your responses straight into your assessment task, which we'll also go through today. But just a super quick recap on practice. Now, these are all documents that you have. So very quickly, material practice, hand. They are the actions that they take. The actions that they take, what techniques do they use? What visual language do they use? And then, of course, we have conceptual. Concept meaning idea, meaning the ideas, the meaning, the intention of the artist. And these two, of course, are linked because the actions that the artist takes creates the meaning within the artwork. And that's what your assessment task is all about. So we've got all our material practice things we can talk about, and we have our conceptual practice. These are all in theory resources under your classwork tab. Other words we can think about when we're working with practice, of course, it's intentions, choices, and actions. And that's what you're going to be talking about with your chosen artist in your assessment task. Their intentions, choices, actions. And then we have this table here where we went around in class, and these are things we can talk about: skills, process, materials, ideas, science, workplace interpretation, beliefs, technologies, values. Now that's going to form the basis of your assessment as well, because you'll be filling out that practice scaffold in what we did with Von Gerard. You're going to be doing with your chosen artists. Okay, just to recap the essence of what we do when we talk about art, and this underpins practice. What is the idea, meaning, and intention? And then how is it created? So if we get the feeling of the devastation of bushfires from Fred Williams, what has he done? What choices has he made in his artwork to communicate this idea? It might be use of blacks and browns. It might be the lack of colour within the rest of the work. All of these things which we're going to discuss soon. And you would have written down something similar to this. So how and what, and these two things are linked. There's a relationship between the artist's practice, material practice, and the artist's conceptual practice. And that's what your question 3 is all about. Okay, we're just going to have a look at this document here, because this, as I said, forms the basis of your assessment task. And you would have done this for Fred Williams. Okay, so very quickly about this artwork, which was the model response. It's an Aboriginal artist, and they're exploring the mistreatment of the Aboriginal people through stolen generation and what happened during colonisation. So if you had a little read through it, okay, it talks about the subject matter and composition of the artwork. So that's where you're explaining what you see and how the artwork has been arranged. So if I scan through that, it's a naked body of an Aboriginal person, cropped. It's faded in sections. Pearls are placed in a noose-like knot around the neck, hanging on the back. Now, in these responses, when you describe the subject matter and composition, you need to pretend you're describing it to someone and they can't see it. So will they get a visual image in their mind? Right, composition. To the left of the figure is a spinal column. Overlaid on the figure, a measurement scale, a red dash, and an equal sign. The background is a contrasting flat yellow. So that's that. We've described the artwork. Now let's really jump into what choices and actions has the artist made to communicate these ideas. So the choice to ghost the figure by making them partially transparent. That is the physical action that they've done on their artwork to create what idea. This suggests that he and his fellow Aboriginals are forgotten, not recognised, or perhaps that their sacred cultural rituals are being lost. So on the left we have the technique or the visual language. On the right we have the idea it creates. Secondly, pose the figure with their back facing the viewer. That was a conscious choice that the artist has made. This choice suggests that we have turned our backs on the Aboriginal culture and possibly the position in which they were whipped in the past or tortured. So we've got 1 and 1 going together, and we've got 2 and 2 going together. Now, it was your job to do this with Fred Williams. Now, we're going to read through my answers because these answers actually form the basis of your question 3, and you'll see that in a moment. So we're talking about the fire-ravaged landscape that Fred Williams has painted or represented or suggested here in this artwork. Okay, so subject matter and composition. It suggests a landscape in which was ravaged by ferocious fires, defined by Williams' signature horizon line situated near the top of the work, which separates the dry land and the cool sky. Beneath lie swirls of black and brown paint that are repeatedly dabbed and scattered across the work. That was describing the subject matter and composition. You can see I haven't jumped into meaning yet. I haven't jumped into the ideas. That's what's coming next. So, what actions did the artist take to create meanings? So, what is the idea? How is it created? This goes back to this. What is the idea and how is it created? And of course, how is it created? Through this lovely mind map here called visual language. These are all the things an artist can do to create meaning. So when I say techniques, when I say how, I mean visual language. As you can see here, visual language, the hows. These are all the techniques. Okay, so I'm going to read through these because these are straight into my response. So here is, I'll just put this down so you can see it make a bit more sense. Okay, so we've got the hows and we've got the ideas. The selection of a limited muted colour palette of browns and blacks emphasise the lack of colour in the work, suggesting the sheer impact on which the fires had on the landscape. Now that's much more descriptive with a lot more adjectives than I saw a lot of your responses had. So please make sure you're really bulking up with art language and vocab, painting a colourful picture. The scattered violent dabs and swirls of paint. So not just dabs and swirls, I've said scattered violent dabs and swirls of paint, represent the different clusters of foliage or clumps of soil in which once were flourishing. Number 3, the repetitiveness of these, along with the stark horizon line, still talking about the dabs, implies the monotony and the endlessness of such an arid landscape. Number 4, the choice of adding flicks of more natural colours such as mauve, green and pink are stark reminders of the damage inflicted by the fires, but also provide a sense of hope through new growth and vegetation. Number 5, my last technique, my last visual language, my last how. The artwork is largely abstract. A landscape is depicted and depth is created through the slight decrease in size of the trees. This symbolises both the endlessness and the repetitiveness of the landscape, which is void of humanity. So this side we have techniques. Techniques suggest something, they imply something, they symbolise something, they're indicative of something, all our connective language, and these are the ideas that are created. So hopefully that you got something from this with Fred Williams, and we're going to see how this directly feeds into the assessment. But I'm going to leave this video for now, and I hope that gives you some ideas, and you might even want to go back to your Fred Williams and sort of compare it against your response. Thank you.